was with the series with Disney, and it was called Going Wild, and it was so long ago, and I did a reintroduction program on turkeys here, which was awesome, and looked at salamanders, specifically looking at hellbenders and some other very unique salamanders. If you've ever watched the stuff I've done, you know I have a great affinity for the herpetile, the amphibians and the reptiles, and this is really God's country when it comes to amphibians. It also may become the front lines of conservation as we lose our planet in amphibians, which is happening at a terrifying rate. Has anyone here ever heard of Trachytridium mycosis? Yeah? It took me about 2 years to be able to say that word. It is a deadly fungus that is spreading across our planet. It's a fungus that most likely we have spread through the use of amphibians like the bullfrog and African clawed frog. And as this fungus spreads and it capitalizes on a perfect storm of extinction, habitat loss, climate change, environmental degradation, and species, unsustainable exploitation of species. That all happens and creates this radar screen with blipping so loudly about to sort of crash and burn into this kindred fungus. What really influenced me to pursue this in a documentary that was on recently called The Vanishing Frog, where we traveled around the world and looked at the plight of our planet's amphibians, was I was sitting with my daughter, Maya, and we were watching a show that I did in Panama. She saw this little frog from that show. I would love to see that frog. And then I found out it was extinct. It didn't exist. You think of extinction, you think of dinosaurs, and you think of dusky dodo birds in a museum. Extinction is very real. We lose a species every 20 minutes off our planet. We largely are losing species because of our failure to sustainably and wisely use our natural resources. And amphibians are really on the front lines of this. There are 6,000, just let me digress here for a bit and we'll go into some other stuff. But there's 6,000 species of amphibians occupying our planet. They've withstood 5 major extinctions in a period of about 325 to 350 million years for as long as amphibians have been on. And the planet has predicted that we could lose 3,000 of the 6,000 amphibian species within the next 3 or 4 decades from now. We've already lost 250 amphibians in the last 2 decades. The golden frog, what they call the harlequin frog from Panama, is gone. Most of the harlequin frogs are now gone. We've lost the in Monteverde, we lost the golden toad is gone, and that's just one of many of these species. And we could ask ourselves, well, why should we care beyond the aesthetic loss, beyond the loss to our national and international natural heritage? Well, we lose, number one, medicine. Many of the medicines we use to fight diseases, the chemicals, the peptides that many amphibians produce in their skin as a defense from predators, we use in our lives. We use them to fight ulcers, the gastric, mouth-moving frog, incredible little frog. Someone discovered and squeezed it and burst up a perfectly formed little frog. And it turns out that's what it did for defense. It actually swallowed its babies and protected them. It actually had the ability to turn off its digestive juices. It was discovered in 83 and it was extinct in 85. And we now know from museum specimens that if we had kept that frog alive, we probably could have solved the challenges we've made with digestive ulcers. But we use amphibians for medicine, they're important in agriculture, they're incredibly important in the food web of nature. And it's very scary when you go into a rainforest and it sounds like this, except for the column. And that's because everything that's dependent on amphibians are gone since the frogs are gone. You walk postcard perfect rainforest. I know. It's like that. It looks like see if you're in the Lowe's greenhouse, get your plants for the season. And that's because we've lost these amphibians. But the biggest importance of amphibians is that they are nature's ultimate indicator species. They have a canary in the coal mine that tells us about changes in our environment. And they are telling us really scary stuff. So thank you for coming tonight. It was so good to meet you. So that, I'm done with that. So, the Vanishing Frog displays, and I'll tell you what's coming up. I've got a documentary coming up on, if you like polar bears, and you want to see us study polar bears and actually put radio collars on them and track them and study how their world is melting away and how they're impacted, on April 1st, now literally half of it. Now on Earth Day, whatever the heck that is, there's a document, I should know, but I don't. There's a documentary called The Year of the Polar Bear, with me and my crew up there, which is my hero, a great scientist named Steve Anstra. So that's coming up. I have a documentary. I just got off the phone. I found I'm going to the DRC in a couple of weeks to do a thing on bushmeat trade and primates, and then a project trying to save bonobos for a documentary I'm doing for NBC called 100 Heartbeats. And the premise is, it's the ultimate club you don't want to join because exclusive membership means if you're part of this club, there's only 100 of you left. And the journey to try to save the last of the species of the creatures on the brink of extinction and the heroes trying to pull them back on the precipice. So that's a global journey. We're filming in the U.S. I have not had a chance to change in a week because you can actually see that brown. I'll show you. I have some. I think somewhere I have wolf scat on me because I was in North Carolina with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service helping them relocate red wolves, a species that was declared extinct in 1980. They found 400 wild wolves from 73 to 80. Of which only 43 they thought may be real red wolves. When they did the genetic testing, only 14 were real red wolves. And then of that, only 11 could breed. We have 100 living in the wild, but they're barely making it. It's an incredible story. So I was just doing that, and all my flights are canceled because of your lovely weather. So I spent my evening in New Orleans washing my clothes in the tub of the hotel with shampoo. And today I was so excited to be here. I was so excited to come. I actually planned, I was going to spend the night at my friend's house last night when I did, and we were going to wake up, and I got one of the best fly fishermen. We were going to fly fish the Clinch River, and we canceled it because of the weather. So I went to barbecue all day, and now I'm digesting with acid reflux. But so, you saw wonderful little vignette of moments that I've had over the years, and so what I thought is we could talk a little bit about what I do, how that started, and then what I'd like to then do is open it up to the floor so we can explore your interests and questions. And you know, a lot of people say, well, how does it start? You know, how you go from a kid who lives in a free family in a city environment, in an urban environment, to traveling around the world studying animals and telling their stories. My dad was a police officer. He retired after 36 years of being a police officer. My mom was a nurse. You know, I didn't have Dave Gaspar and Jane Goodall's parents. I was a regular Joe. And, but I relished. I hungered for the weekends when we could get out of this urban environment where I just felt that I didn't belong and go visit my grandparents who lived in the country, and I would just immediately start ripping through the wood pile to see what was there. And I was 6 years old, going through the woods, and I saw this thing. I didn't have a name for it. We didn't have shows like my show's on, so I didn't know what it was, but it was about this long. It was scaly, legless. I was 6 years old, and I thought I discovered something never seen before. And almost instantly upon discovery, it just melted and twisted into the wood and was gone. And it passed, and started ripping through the wood, and finally get to the bottom. you know, that layer of humus and detritus, like old spider webs and cocoons, and there was this perfectly coiled face. I had no idea what it was, but I knew it was, you know, just so excited me. My heart started beating, my legs started to shake, and I just instinctively just reached up and grabbed onto it. And it instinctively reached back and grabbed onto me. And it was this snake just hanging from my arm. Of course, I burst into tears, but I was exhilarated. And I often think that, you know, if I rolled over that wood and I